on the train.
Let's look to our neighbors beside you, in front of you, behind you. Cheers! To friendship and adventure.
Agricultural farmers, and it was 25 cents a head, but that toll even extended to the livestock as well too, so the cows and chickens had to pay that quarter as well. Then in 1936 they renovated this bridge. We're going on the rail-only portion of the bridge that, as I mentioned earlier, does swing open for water traffic. And the bridge that you're seeing up above that orange arch truss bridge, that is the Patello Bridge, named after Duff Patello, who was the Governor General during the time of construction here. We'll start to see another rail line on this bridge, and that's indicative of here off to your right is where the Burlington Northern Santa Fe line. We'll head down into Seattle here along this line. We're going to be going at this slower.
From east to west. So we'll have a less likely chance of having to stop for those freight trains.
Here there's a footbridge that's right across from us, that orange footbridge. Have a look right underneath there, and that's where you'll see just under 900 million liters traveling through every minute, twice that of Niagara Falls. You might not get quite the same depth perception. Of course, it's not a big waterfall coming over, but that is over 150 feet deep there. And you can tell it is already on the more shallow side at 150 feet deep. There's a few things to point out. We've got an air tram that actually comes from up above. The Trans-Canada Highway is actually across the canyon there. We've crossed it over now 3 times. The Fraser Swing Bridge, the Mission Swing Bridge, where we were at the tidal bore, the highest that the tidal current essentially comes up from the ocean. And now this is the 3rd time, as we are now in fresh water here through the Fraser River. Even though down below with all that sediment, it doesn't look all that fresh. Now we're going to get further away here from the coastal mountain range, as you can see here on our right-hand side, and we're going to start to notice a lot of the evergreens slowly disappearing as we head into the Thompson Plateau, which is going to be like an arid desert where we're going to finish off our day today. And that's a rain shadow effect that's essentially created from being sandwiched between the coastal and Cascade mountain ranges, where we're coming out of, and heading into the Columbia mountain ranges, where we'll be going into tomorrow. It just sucks up all the moisture, both those mountain ranges, which creates this rain shadow effect. And why pretty soon, once we start entering into the Thompson Canyons, all we're going to see is ponderosa pine and sagebrush from all these beautiful hemlocks, cedars, and fir trees that we're seeing. We are starting to see early signs of snow. It is snowing up in Jasper, and we are expecting snow as well too for tomorrow in Jasper at about 6 degrees or 44 degrees Fahrenheit from what I've been looking at for the projections tomorrow. But we may start seeing some dustings on some of the coastal mountains here as well too.
Waterfalls. Yeah, it was.
Kind of pretty that is up there in front of the train.
All right, here's your best views of sort of the aftermath of that forest fire coming up here on our left-hand side. Oxidizing. You're going to start to really see how the Canadian Pacific Railway chose the more optimal side of the canyons, because in just a short while here, as it starts going through a number of these snow sheds, you're going to see the other name for this area, and that's Avalanche Alley. In fact, when Canadian National Railway was operating in its first year of operation in 1916, they didn't operate over the winter months. They actually stood on this side of the canyon and triggered avalanches and landslides so they would know where to actually strategically locate all their snow sheds. From the community of Lytton all the way to Spence's Bridge, which will be our next major community coming up, there's over 6.5 kilometers of different snow sheds throughout here. That were traveling through here in the 80s to set up where they would put up most of their red and white blue balls. Have you seen that on the wires coming through here? Now that's a lot for the water carriers that come up and pick up the water to douse the flames in the fires coming up through there, both the helicopters as well as the planes. Not only is it telling them that A, there's wires there, but also that this section of the river might be a little bit too narrow or shallow to come down for the scoops there. And it's popular among 3 different whitewater rafting companies here. And everything is actually broken down on the international Maytag scale, which ranges from about a 1 to a 6+. 6+, you'd probably be thinking twice before putting a boat in those kind of waters. But it gets up to
I'm not ready.
I didn't see it.
I like it. And I had a cup this morning, and then I had a cup on the second one I had. I can't drink Chad, do you know what kind of card is in that camera? No, they haven't said anything. I don't know. She just said before when they found out what was she said now we can start She didn't say anything. I don't think all those some of their friends, some of the names, you know, kind of names and
just at the far end, going to our right here, there was actually a baseball field in the 1950s where there were reports of home runs going and actually knocking the bell, and one's going through the doors. We're also going to see quite quickly a candy cane strike hydroelectric pole that has an osprey nest.
It's amazing.
Now, to speak of the fierce rivalry and competitiveness between these two companies, when Canadian Northern drove in their last spike on 1915, January 23rd, within 2 weeks of completion, that tunnel that we're going to go through across this water mysteriously collapsed. And there were other rumors and about sabotage that would happen at night, supposedly by the Canadian Pacific Rail Line workers. As we see these two stone jetties that are jutting out here, these are man-made, and the river takes two very sharp right-angle turns right here. And you'll see just when we go past the second one, the whirlpools or eddies and the forces generated from that. With this soft silt land where the rail lines are, the rail line companies built those stone jetties to absorb the forces of the whirlpools so it wouldn't wash out the tracks a bit further ahead looking back. We're going to see evidence of two landslides that happened, one this winter and another one that's happened about 2 weeks ago right here on the left-hand side. And then as we go across the bridge, I want you to look on the right-hand side, on this side of the bluff, how steep it is. Look for the old rail bed and trestle work where the CP engineers thought it was a good idea to build a rail line. Right, can you believe the audacity there? So we're going right into a tunnel, and when we come out of the tunnel is one of my favorite unofficial photo opportunities that I personally like to share with the guests, although we're not necessarily pointed out we're told to. But when we come out of this tunnel, we can look steep back on our right-hand side, and that bridge we just came across to go into this tunnel, we'll see it crossing from one canyon wall to the other. In the background, the river takes a sharp turn, there's rapids, there's the striations of the earth that's risen up. It's really a great photo. You've got a good zoom. Look back to your right now, and just have the camera ready. Only a few seconds. Kind of speaks to the ruggedness of this rail line and how it's been built. So at this stage, we're a little bit more than 5 minutes.
Ewan and I do in the off season. We're responsible for all the touch-up paint there. So he does the green, I do the purple. Looking good.
Let's all raise our glasses. Let's put to our neighbors beside you, in front of you, behind you. Cheers!
Aftermath of one of the worst domestically started fires in BC history here. I mentioned last year was our worst forest fire year at 1.2 million hectares of land that was burnt. The year before that was 2003, and that's when this fire happened. And that was about 265,000 hectares of land that was burnt. So we had an absolute catastrophic year in terms of overall hectares burnt. We went into a state of emergency as well too. This one was actually started by a man by the name of Michael Barr, enjoying a celebratory cigarette after roofing his home. He outed the cigarette, and by the time he made it downstairs, this thing had just ignited. It burnt for 72 days straight. It became a cornerstone for how we would store our hazardous materials and gases, as people had propane tanks in the middle of their property, and these things were going off like bombs, essentially. We're still in the arid plateau here. We're starting to get into the Columbia Mountain Range. This is sort of the doorstep of the Columbia Mountain Range, so it's still very dry here. And as you can see, the fire even picked up and swept right up the valley sides and right over the river up in here as well too. For a fire that happened nearly 15 years ago, you're seeing next to no regrowth because the soil cultures were just absolutely torched. My fiance's father was actually the last acting manager at the Telco lumber mill at the time. He said as soon as that fire started to encroach onto the wood chips, it was time to get out of there. He knew he had to go. When he finally made it back, when it was safe to eventually return to the site, he said there was heavy machinery that was burnt beyond recognition in there. Yeah, definitely. Actually, there was one manager who was working at that time and that it originally started, and they went through, and then for about nearly over a month we couldn't come through here because it was so bad at that time. Yeah, it was really bad. Sometimes, you know, he did over $40 million of damage in the area as well too, and sometimes it can be a real testament.
Well, the train is slow right now. I mentioned that these coniferous trees here are Douglas fir trees. Near the top you sometimes see the cones, and that is one of the best ways to tell them apart from others. You see the Douglas fir pine cones are usually near the top of the tree, or if you see them at the base of the tree. One of the best ways to tell them apart from any other cones is a fable that would be told by the indigenous people revolves around the idea that there are little mice that are hiding in the cones, and so all you see are their two legs and a tail sticking out. They have three strong leaflets on their cones layered around it, so you see that it's very distinctual. We've also got, again, some birch tree, which is similar to the aspen in this regard. There's white bark, and Carlos talked a story about them earlier.
Wow, that's a good shot in there. I left it on the movies.
Right down below us, just coming up here in this next opening. And we'll go right underneath the rail line here. And here we are, the beautiful Pyramid Falls. That's actually coming up from the North Thompson, and we're going to actually break away from that North Thompson River shortly, and we're going to start reconnecting with the Fraser River in and around Valemount. Fossil rich, is because it was all an inland sea millions of years ago.
Now it's going along the ridge. Sun's coming.
Perfect.
Wow.
Sorry, thank you. No, yeah, you're good. That's creative. I like it.
Here's the bridge.
In the river right now?
Now we are looking at the south face of the mountain here, but recently we did have a snowboarder actually descend down of the north face. Now this is the south face there. And now Mount Robson, we don't know for sure what the origin of the name is, but the First Nations people, the Stonies or the Shuswaps, referred to it as Hayat-Sun, which roughly translates to the spiral road to the afterlife. Now this is probably the best shots that we're going to be getting of it, however we will be traveling alongside it for quite a while. Now it's very tall, as you can see the alpine clouds that are covering it at the top. We rarely see the top of it. It does have its own weather system at the top there.
Since we are only about 15 miles out, you may see a few more red patches right up here on our left-hand side. I figured I'd just sort of round things off by telling you a little bit about that mountain pine beetle as well too, because it's affecting little something you might not know, but Ewan just got married on the Labor Day weekend. Oh, congratulations for that. It's always great when you get to work with a good buddy as well too, and it's kind of interesting. There's almost like a mentor pattern that's going on. I've taken a lot from Ewan, as you probably got some very enriched commentary over the last 2 days, and taken that in over my next 8 years. And now we've got Julia, who's aspiring to be a host for next season. And yeah, you bet. Giving some attempts on that commentary as well with her great service. We can't wait to have her join the host team for next year as well too. But it comes down to really all of you. I hope you had an amazing 2 days. This is a job that we are very passionate about, and I hope that passion came out in the last 2 days with both our services and the overall knowledge that we gave you as we're going through a place that we all love to call home in Western Canada as well too. You're coming into the national parks here as well too in Jasper, so I do just want to give you a heads up. There's going to be elk everywhere, even on the streets, coming around there too. Especially since they just kind of got out of running season, and actually a elk 2 weeks ago was put down for charging a human. Please keep a respectful distance there. They are not just giant dogs. By our Rocky Mountain.
Yep.
Yeah.
Could you hear that in the bus?
Yes, very happy.
All those are his?
So how many places? mean, I see more bull elk across the valley ahead of us, but
See him?
what do you think? Okay to get rolling? All right, we're gonna need to see that. You won't see it around Lake Louise, elevation's too high, but there are elk around Banff. And Jasper's probably the best place to see him because for a couple of reasons. One is the elevation. This is about as low elevation-wise as it gets in the park. There's another big one. Luck, chance, and timing.
Oh, look at this here. Oh my goodness.
It's a big guy.
Well, changing the subject quickly here. The Columbia ice field, we're getting close to ice field.
On a nice day like today, it's pretty nice, but if you have gnarly weather, especially if you work up a sweat, and you get those strong winds and it starts to rain, it can be very, very cold. We actually had to pick up a couple of people alongside the road that were getting hypothermia, actually. Yes, this would have been all just crushed up stuff that the glacier was pushed out of its way and stuff, and stacked it up on the sides. Yeah, so everybody's okay? Did not just carry too bad?
Can't talk.
I don't see him.
Over there, they're getting a picture taken by somebody up against the. See him? Straight ahead at 12 o'clock. 12 o'clock.
Oh yeah. Maybe just get up, take a picture. We can stand there. We got our picture by that snowman.
Oh, did you?
Holding Yeah, sure. Rip and draw.
We don't want to take your.
Yeah, just outside me.
Hold on, I'll catch up with you in a minute.
佢冇咁反光喎，嗰就直成一面鏡咁喎。
Go ahead, you're good.
Oh non, non. C'était jusqu'en haut complètement? Ouais. Ça fait vraiment beau, ça fait la peine. Oui. Ben ouais, c'est ça. Elle dit qu'elle était allée en haut complètement. Elle s'est tout boulée. To your left.
Once you get all of your shots on the left, bounce to the right, and you can see the Canadian National Bridge. This is a cantilever-style bridge. Now, the original bridge was built in England, and it sailed around the world in small pieces. I like to think much like IKEA furniture. And just to refresh, I'm sure Jesse mentioned it through Rainbow Canyon and Avalanche Valley, but again, the Canadian National had to build on the more treacherous side of the river because the Canadian Pacific would not sell them any land. So this doesn't look so treacherous, but this was much more difficult to build this bridge through. They had to actually blast a tunnel through before completing the bridge. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. You survived the gates of hell. Sipping on your wine nonetheless. No one spilled anything. Well, we do lean quite far to the left over on the bridge.
Once you get out of the bridge, probably might want to back that way.
Yeah.
Once you get all of your shots on the left, bounce to the right, and you can see the Canadian National Bridge. This is a cantilever-style bridge. Now, the original bridge was built in England, and it sailed around the world in small pieces. I like to think much like IKEA furniture. And just to refresh, I'm sure Jesse mentioned it through Rainbow Canyon and Avalanche Valley, but again, the Canadian National had to build on the more treacherous side of the river because the Canadian Pacific would not sell them any land. So this doesn't look so treacherous, but this was much more difficult to build this bridge through. They had to actually blast a tunnel through before completing the bridge. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. You survived the gates of hell. Sipping on your wine nonetheless. No one spilled anything.
I got a few.